All right, y'all. We are back better than ever. Erev line launch before we head out to Eretz Yisrael. So we'll finish chapter 7 over here. And hopefully get a little bit of chizuk in terms of just navigating our life as a whole, recognizing what is being asked and called of us. You see, life is a tricky game. We never know how it's going to play out. We can plan as much as we can, and yet at the same time, Hashem's got his plan and he's got his nisyonos, he's got his challenges and his tests that he knows he's gonna throw your way. And we have to invest in ourselves to become as strong as we can so that way we can rise to the occasion when that stuff happens. On the one hand, investing in yourself means that you have a healthy balance with peer pressure. When I say peer pressure, I just mean influence in general. There is the influence that happens upon you, and then there's the influence that you put yourself into. And we can do our hishtadlus, meaning that we can do our part in making sure we're protecting ourselves from putting ourselves in compromised positions and situations and surrounding ourselves with people who want to cause us harm and no good. And he's helping us over the last couple of weeks identify who those people are, those who mock Yiddishkeit, those who try to degrade what we're trying to do or our way of life, or those who are just outright hypocrites who will say that they advocate they will advocate for Yiddishkeit. What's nice about being in the environment of seminary and yeshiva is that you're in the right environment. You know what I mean? Seeing the world and with absolute clarity is a lot easier than when you're mixed up in a secular society. You can just sit there and you can say, listen, I'm going to go into the fire, so to speak, but at least, in this moment of clarity, I can build my foundation with that. So we want to set ourselves up for success. We want to prepare and make sure that we're protected from that. But then Hashem, now and then in a person's life will throw a curveball your way, and you'll find yourself in a situation that you couldn't have anticipated and you couldn't have prepared for. And it's at those moments that really requires to rise to the occasion. Again, shtadlos is like if you go into a compromised situation and you fall apart, who is to blame? To look at yourself and say, okay, I need to protect myself from certain people and environments. But when Hashem, throughout no doing of your own, and you end up in a compromised environment, that's where Hashem trusts and believes in you that you have the ability to rise to the occasion. And we need to prepare ourselves for that as best as we can. So we are on page 153, and we're going to go weiter with that theme to finish the chapter. However, if we chas v'shalom, there are circumstances that you cannot overcome or beyond your control, and as a result, you cannot remain a Ben Torah learning full time in yeshiva, and you must go into business or work a profession while you're still young. Don't chas v'shalom despair of being a full-hearted Jew, and don't take leave of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning that, and we have to remember this, right? Is that Hashem is a God of everywhere. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. Meaning that even when you go out into your trials and your tribulations, that God is still there with you, and that a person can bring Him with you into whatever it is. And then sometimes people conflate these two ideas and these two concepts. Ideally, you always want to be in an environment and a situation that's most ideal. That's the way Hashem set up. And anybody who says to the contrary is just doesn't know baseline Judaism. When people say like, but how are we supposed to spread the light of God if we're not out there? It's just a nonsensical thing to like put yourself. Hashem created the land of Eretz Yisrael for all the Jews to be there, to be the lights onto the nation, not by sending out ambassadors, right? Chabad doesn't go out there all over the world to inspire, the non-Jews to be the Or Goyim. They're out there for the Jews who might need a place to be able to connect to Kedusha. But the idea that we're supposed to just be out there all spreading that, no, we're supposed to be insular in our own community and the world learns from us. Best highlighted in the era of Shlomo HaMelech, where we lived in peace with all of our neighbors and the entire world learned from us. We were truly oligorim for 40 years of peace and serenity and being the most ideal time in Jewish history until the coming of Mashiach. Right? That's what we're meant to be. So some people conflate these two ideas where it's like you look at it and you're like, okay, we're supposed to be isolated and insular and all that stuff and like be away from any negative environment. True, there's merit to that. But if you're forced to have to be out there, it doesn't mean that God is not there as well. Again, whether or not a person should volunteer, we talked about it last week. If you have a unbelievable break in your career, an opportunity to be able to get a job that is your dream job, that has a 5 times the salary that you ever thought you would get, that you will have fame and fortune, all that stuff, but it requires you to bring your family to some remote destination with no Jewish community and no Jewish infrastructure. Your priorities. There's what on earth do you think who would on earth gave you the rishus to go out there and do that? So you're going to sacrifice your children for the pursuit of your career? Are you crazy? Right? So people will say, "Oh, but you can know Hashem is everywhere, so you can daven in your home." Let's not conflate those two ideas. Of course, God is everywhere. Of course, you can pray in your living room if you decide to move out to someplace in Oklahoma. For sure, you can. You're not supposed to do that. Now, if you find yourself in that situation, that's when you have to remind yourself that Hashem is with you. That no matter where you go in life, that Hashem is not void to whatever, But again, who is making the decision? Is it something that a person is volunteering themselves for to put themselves into a compromised situation, or are they being sent? Lech lecha, is God sending you into that situation? And you have to be very careful not to rationalize these things. But if you find yourself in a situation, God is there as well. And a person can access him there. Please know that there are different difficult nisyonos. Those are challenges and tests from the Shorish word of nes, miracle, which is in the Akedah, which is an unbelievable idea that your challenges really are miracles because you overcoming your nature is the definition of what a miracle is, right? Awaiting you that have forced you to leave yeshiva, be strong and stand up to them. Bind yourself to Hashem, and He will be with you. Come in many ways. Now, this is trigger warning, rant coming. No, not so much of a rant, but just a fundamental idea that if a person, and this is where people fool themselves, if a person is going into a compromised situation, to be strong and stand up to those things. If a person thinks for a second that they can be passive, in their pursuit of maintaining a grip on their godliness, as I said, any kid that I've ever known, who's been in NCSY, who went and did 4 years in a university, there is not one exception that I can think of in 15 years who came out stronger spiritually than they went in. Because again, the college campus and the culture is not only avodah zarah, but it's a spiritual desolate wasteland. Oh, but there's a Chabad. Those people, it's unbelievable. You cannot be passive in that. When a person shows up without a game plan and they go to a place that the Kedusha is going to be daily ripped out of them with the ploys of the Amalek, which is basically just telling you that it's not a big deal. If a person goes in and they're passive in that, they will fail 100% of the time. You cannot do that. You must be proactive. If a person wants Kedusha in their life, you need to be proactive. When I sit down, and again, college is the best example of all time because that's where we see, the hotbed of assimilation in American society for Jews, the most dangerous spiritual place for a young Jew, right? When you go in there and you don't have a game plan, when I sit down with students and you set up that game plan, there are the assays and the los assays. The los assays these are the things you don't do. Plain and simple, you do not rush for a fraternity or sorority. It doesn't matter if it's Jewish. I don't even know what that means. No, I mean, everyone's getting wrecked, but they're all Jewish, so it's fine. There's the los assays of you don't do these things if you want to maintain yourself in good spiritual standing. And then there are the assays, right? If I, for example, say I'm going to daven 3 times a day, you don't compromise on that no matter what is going on. If you're going to say, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to have that chavrusa, or I'm going to make sure whatever you decide to be your assays and los assays, you don't compromise on that. But to think passively like I'm going to be fine is the most basic ploy of the Yetzer Hara you can possibly think of. Walk into a fire, not respecting the danger of the fire, and you're going to get torched and scorched beyond belief. And this is what happens to Jews. They go into spiritually hostile environments without the smallest sense and they disrespect the danger. They disrespect the danger. They don't think it's a big deal. They don't realize, even when you're older, by the way, when you're past this stage, when you go into the work environment, when a guy goes and he gets a job as an accountant in the Big Five in the financial district, and you're surrounded by people who have the total opposite values of you, and like it's not going to affect you every single day, sitting in a cubicle surrounded by people who are in the pursuit of money and money alone. If a person doesn't think that it's going to affect them, they don't have a game plan to insert Kedusha in their life, they're going to lose all the time. And that's what he's saying. It is so foolish to think that just because I have a value or a merit, that it's just going to flourish without you giving it sunlight and water and love. It's such a stupid idea. And unfortunately, again, this is what the Yetzer Hara does. It convinces a person, that's fine. The whole idea to go to yeshiva and seminary, by the way, because nobody goes, you can't be a seminary student for life. It's not reality. It's not reality. But what are you doing there? You're laying a game plan. You're allowing Hashem to create a roadmap of steps of what do I do next to set myself up for success. because you have to have a game plan. You have to have a battle plan when you go out there. And if a person is naive to that, they're always going to fail. Hashem is accessible, but you need to be the one who is fighting for it proactively and not passively. Don't let a single day pass by without learning Torah and daven to him from the depths of your heart. We talked about how important it is to be kovei itim la Torah, but it's like a cell phone battery. If it is not coming in, it is going out. If a person is not charging themselves and filling up their cup and bringing spirituality into their life, it is automatically being drained from you every day and every moment. If you're not fighting fire with fire. And if a Jew does not understand this most basic concept, they're going to wake up one day and they're going to be so distant from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and they're going to be like, well, what happened? Well, life happened, right? It's foolish. Life is about growth. It's a proactive pursuit all the time. So a person has to do that. They need to be strong, strengthen themselves, create gedarim, and then make sure that it's not. They have to make sure that they are on a seder, that they have Torah, that they have tefillah, that they have kedusha. That is a part of their day-to-day life. Pour out your soul to Him in whatever way you want, whether it's by means we have set down here through some other medium, either orally or in your heart to yourself. Think to yourself, please Hashem, you know that all that goes on inside. You know I didn't leave learning to go to work out of the desire to rebel against you, God forbid. I did not leave, by the way, we also have to remind ourselves, as much as we love our careers, it ultimately was a curse, right? Man was put here for the pursuit of godliness, and the only reason that we have to work and be able to make a living, to survive, is because it was a curse of Adam. It wasn't the original plan, right? So just keeping things in context here. You could still love your career, but let's not lose sight of what we're doing here in the first place. I did not leave the world of truth and that of nothingness out of malice. You know the torment that I went through and the ordeals I found myself contending with until I couldn't bear to live it anymore and was forced to leave yeshiva and make a living. But again, I love the Ish Kodesh's description of his tefillah in the way that he prays. I think it's poetic, and it also gives us an inkling of what it is to have proper tefillah. Yeah, Mashiach.
You said that like for the curse that wasn't the plan. But like if Hashem knows like everything that's gonna happen, then like isn't it already the plan? Because like Earth was already created and like the system was already created, like everything was already there.
Are you asking the most fundamental question on free will that everyone always
No,
asks?
like
I'm
like I
happy to go. I'm happy to do it, but you're asking like, how, if God knows the future, then how are you?
no, I know that. I'm just saying like saying that it wasn't the plan. But
Yeah, because
it was already
either we're free or we're not. The idea of the chosen people, of making the bris bein Hasarim with Avram Avinu, that wasn't the plan. God created all of humanity to bask in the light of godliness in this world in Gan Eden. That was the plan. The actions of man took us away from that. Of course, there were plans. God didn't create the world with the intention to destroy it in the flood of Noah. That wasn't the plan. The plan wasn't for humanity to steep into the bowels of idolatry. But if either we're free or we're not free. If we're truly free, then we have to let things play out and see how they happen. And, when we make dumb decisions wholesomely, God's going to react in kind for sure. The systems were in place, but right, the rules of the game were in place. How we decided to play our hand dictated what ultimately happened. Now the rest is history. Here we are. But God's understanding that obviously when you're playing a game, you're setting up, if you go left, this happens, right? That all those things are in place, but then we're free to play the game. But it was not part of the plan. That's not how man was created originally. Food wasn't something you had to work for. It was just always there. And then God literally commanded him to take part in every single tree possible. Like it was just for us to have pleasure. And he made a boo-boo and he futzed it up. And here we are, having to get careers. Nothing wrong with having a career. I love my career. Yeah, does that make sense?
But if your career is different, like you could say like I could get how a job like working as a businessman is like a curse. But like for example, for you, like you're living a godly life through your career kind of.
Oh,
And it's bringing
listen,
you a lot of
you,
meaning.
you, you, no, no, no. A person, no matter what their career is, they should have a passion for it and they should enjoy it for sure. You're supposed to enjoy life. The whole idea, the concept of having to work for the essentials in life, to have food and shelter, right? That concept, right? We occupy all of our time doing that. Instead, we wish we can be, when Mashiach comes, we're not going to be like working as accountants. You know what I mean? So like the idea of
Yay.
right. But of course, I mean, obviously, like I would. It's not a Jewish thing. Nobody should hate their career. If someone has a career, they should love it. They should love what they do and how they spend their time. But the whole system is not the ideal. It's not really what we're supposed to do with our time. It would be much nicer to be able to spend our days in this pursuit of spirituality without the anxiety of saying, how am I going to pay for food? You know, financial
I
stress.
hear.
It exists. Um, Tov. All right, so back to his tefillah, his beautifully written tefillah. But Hashem, I have no intention of, God forbid, abandoning you and your Torah or ceasing to serve you. I'm still davening to you and learning even beyond my capacity. Of all my thoughts are centered on you. Please, Hashem, my heart is faint and my soul is trembling. I am still, that's so beautiful. I'm still so young and there is a long and dangerous road ahead of me. I have come into this world that's filled with spiritual adversaries and those who would lie in ambush to devour and destroy me, my body and my soul. But if I am like a lost sheep, then you, Hashem, are my shepherd who guides Bnei Yisrael, and therein lies my hope and source of strength. If even one sheep strays from the flock and is attacked by a lion or a bear, it cries out with all its strength, so that the shepherd will hear, and the shepherd has mercy on it. He hastens to save it, and as long as the sheep is still alive. So too, have I taken upon myself to cry out before you, which is distant, winding paths that I find myself in. Please, Hashem, save me. And I know that you will hear my cry up in Shemayim, and you will quickly take hold of my mind and my heartstrings. And then you will save me and guide me back to you. It's unbelievable. This is literally, like if a person's going into a hostile spiritual environment or living this life to be able to maintain that type of perspective and connection with a God, saying that, like, listen, danger lurks around the corner at any given time, right? Again, one of the worst things, and this is what a Molech brought to the world, and this is what the Yetzer Hara does. This, by the way, is the biggest danger in college. There is no like when you get there, the effect that it has on a person, and I watch how people deteriorate like this. The voice in your head that tells you it's not a big deal, that right there is literally how it happens. The sense of urgency goes away. And after a couple of months, you're like, I know before I got here, I said like I wasn't gonna like, become really close friends with non-Jews and like hang out outside of study groups and whatever it is. But like, what's the big deal if like that's the thought? And it's never suddenly, it's gradual. It's always gradual. What's the big deal? Okay, fine. So like I'll walk to the football game. Who cares? It's on Shabbos. Like I'm still keeping Shabbos. It's very slow and gradual. That's how it leads to that. When a person maintains a sense of urgency and a sense of perspective, saying, wherever I am, that there is danger that is always lurking, and I'm begging Hashem to save me and protect me from falling into something I don't want to fall into. That, right, when a person says, again, not from choice, but when they find themselves and they say, I need to be in this environment, I need to make sure that I'm recognizing that there is danger and that I'm always keeping in mind Hashem in a state of tefillah. Hashem, please have my six. Look out for me and protect me so that I do not fall spiritually and fall, God forbid, further away from you. Yeah, Rihanna, you had a question or you were just okay. Constantly keep these words in your mind. Don't distance yourself from your old friends who have the privilege of learning full time and continue to breathe the air of Gan Eden and of the feeling that breathes that originates from the wings of God's malachim. By the way, I'll also extend this to advisors in NCSY. We like when kids go off. It's very interesting. I shared this idea before, but just very quickly. When kids go off the yeshiva and seminary, there's a withdrawal from their NCSY staff, their support system in high school, because you're in a different institution, right? You're not maintaining that same level of contact and connection. In college, the same thing happens. The problem is that they go, it's so much easier to say, oh, they don't keep in touch with me anymore. Everybody gets busy in their life. But when he says maintain connection to your old friends in this context, maintain connection to your source of spirituality. If you say like this, if I'm going into a spiritually hostile environment, I am going to make sure that I call my Rebbe teacher advisor at least once a week for a check-in. And I'm going to make sure that they commit to being there for me in that way. Now, might not be practical, if the person has to have the availability for it, but for a person to say, okay, I'm maintaining the contact and the connection to the people who help me stay above. There are people that I'm very, very, very close with who mamish like, cut me out at that time, right? Because at a certain point, right, you're the conscience I want to kill, right? Macroly, right? Anti-Semitism is you want to kill the Jew because you want to destroy the conscience of the world, as Hitler said famously. So in a person's individual life, if there's people there who are going to connect you to ruchnius and spirituality, I want to eventually also distance myself from them because it gives me more of a permission without guilt to be able to dive into something I shouldn't. But if a person does truly want to be connected to spirituality, you never let go of those rebellion. They're your lifeline. There's a Gemara, a very, very famous Gemara that I love that literally refers to that a person should live, meaning that the life in and of itself is connecting to your Rebbe because they're the source of life for a person. Right? Meet them once in a while, especially on Shabbos and Yontiv, and attend daily Shurim and Tehillim every day as well. Daven with Kavana. I ask these people sometimes this question. It's like, how do you light your torch? How do you get inspired? What clocks you? A person needs to know that about themselves because they need to know that they always have the out. If I know that this thing always inspires me and lights me up, then it means I have that in my back pocket. I have the ability to be able to go to that place for a Shabbos or listen to a shir from that person or whatever it is, to set myself up to make sure that Ruchnius is coming in, because if it's not coming in, it is automatically and inherently going out. Take care to bring in every Shabbos and Yom Tov a few minutes early and let the days linger on even after sun has gone down. Make sure that those days are exclusively governed by Kedusha, right? You get to choose how much Kedusha is in your life. At any stage of your life, you get to choose, are your days filled with Kedusha or are they not? When you take a step back and you have enough self-awareness and mindfulness to say, look at my life objectively. Is my life filled with Kedusha or is it not? Or do I just take for granted the investment I made at a certain time in my life and I'm just riding that wave? Well, every wave is going to crash eventually. So a person has to look and say to themselves, I'm not setting myself up for success, then it's not coming in, then it's only going in one direction. Wait for Shabbos all week long. That is the day in which you are released from the hellish weekly turmoil and the noise, and you enter into Gan Eden. Learn every Shabbos and exchange Divrei Torah with your old friends. Learn Sifrei Musar and Sifrei Chasidus from time to time, etc. And you, fortunate youth who have been privileged to learn Torah full time, don't distance yourself from the friends of yours. You shall feel bad for this poor, unfortunate soul who has been forced by circumstances to withstand the hailstones of Egypt and the fire that burns within those hailstones, the fire that consumes all of those who Hashem does not single out to save you. You who are able to take shelter under the wings of the Shekhinah, make him also feel welcome as long as you see him and he continues to live a Torah lifestyle, and that he longs for his previous life, and that he sat along with you in the earthly Gan Eden. It's so interesting that he's saying this as well, right? When he's talking about, I'm just plugging my computer in, when he's talking about being like good influences, right? That there are people who will bring you up. If somebody is struggling, then you have to be the light for that person to bring them in. But if they, God forbid, are not, if they're tanking, right? Even if they're your best friend, this notion of like, oh, they're my best friend. So like, I hear this all the time from kids, like, they really want me to come to the party with them, but they're my best friend, so I feel like I need to. Who said that what type of a friend makes you compromise on your own spiritual values and norms? Like your best friend goes to college and acts like a total behemoth, what, out of loyalty to your friend? I'm sorry. Friendship is based on values that are important to you, then why should you maintain a friendship like that? Nobody expects that of anybody. Ah, okay. I don't know what happened there. Got frozen. Mid
Say
roast there.
whatever you just said again.
Whatever I just said, we were cooking. Sorry, I said that just the notion of maintaining or having the expectation to maintain a sense of loyalty to a friend who doesn't have any care or interest for your values and what's important to you. Shtickle bot frozen. Nice. Are we still a shtickle bot frozen? Okay, third time's the charm. If under the banner of friendship, that if a person, and again, you have to be loyal to your friends, but under the banner of friendship, if a friend expects you to compromise on your values for just for companionship or whatever, right? That's not somebody you should maintain a friendship with. Friendship should be based on those values. And maybe we had our time and it's time to move on. But if a friend who's encouraging you, again, like to drag you, and we were talking about people who are hypocrites who are trying to drag you down, friends, right? A friend who has no care, who's constantly enticing you to do things on Shabbos on college campus because they don't want to do things alone, which will require you to be Michal Shabbos. That's not a friend. That's not somebody you should maintain a connection with whatsoever. If a friend is struggling spiritually, of course you try to bring them along with you. Of course, he's making a very excellent point. Up until that point, if they're too far gone, at a certain point, you got to protect yourself. protect yourself from that harm. And it's silly to think that like you should still hold on to that relationship if it's outright damaging to you. Yeah, Reed.
Really, yeah, you kind of answered it. But I was gonna say if you could, like, is it possible to still have really close friendships with people that aren't on like the same path as you?
I
Like,
would say not really close. Like, friendship is an axiom, it's a spectrum throughout your entire life, right? Based on either convenience or chapters, the level, the degree of closeness fluctuates based on where you're holding. There's nothing wrong with reestablishing friendships. Just because you were best friends in high school, if you're going in different directions, doesn't mean that you need to maintain that level. No, you readjust the relationship based on what's appropriate. But you are never, again, this is not marriage where you're committed in sickness and in health and all that, right? If somebody is making you compromise on your values as a human being, you have to reestablish the relationships. You need to take a step back because you have to protect yourself. And if that friend is not interested in protecting your values and not sensitive to that, what type of a friend are we talking about here?
but then you in their even if you're protecting yourself in their eyes, you could be like, oh, like they took this path, so they think they're better than me. Oh, like they're actually
Ready,
being a
ready,
bad
ready.
friend. Like,
Who cares? I mean, actually, like
but like
who
if
cares?
somebody's genuinely hurt by something,
Okay, so no,
then
you don't have to be.
I care about I
I'm
care
not
about
into.
them.
I'm not into dropping people. I think that's, there's a
Mhm.
concept covered abrius. You have to treat people normally with respect. You have to be kind and courteous to people. You can't act like nobody likes the whole like I'm gonna do what I want. I don't care about anybody's feelings. No, for sure not. But in reality, as in like, are we expected to someone to could continue to cause themselves harm by maintaining a close connection with someone who it's making them compromise on their values is again, it's extremely foolish. Who would expect such a thing? So in a respectful way, but begin to distance that process. Very simply, like I'm sorry, like to me this is important. I'm not going to that event. We're having Shabbat Friday night dinner at Chabad. You want to go now to the club? I'm sorry, I'm just not coming with you. How are you going to ditch me? You're going to make me go alone? Yeah, kind of. Sorry. Like you could do it in a respectful way, but like what are we talking about here? Right? Loyalty to a friend doesn't go beyond, whatever. Anyway, Danielle, we're wrapping up the chapter here. So
I hear.
yeah, again, your job is to make sure that you're protecting the spiritual pursuit of yourself. You're not there. Chesed in Judaism, we don't say that you're supposed to give away charity to the point where you're broke. If you're on a deserted island, you have one bottle of water for survival. You don't give that away. You put the mask on yourself first. You're supposed to protect your own ruchnias, protect your own spirituality, protect your well-being before it comes to doing chesed and being there for other people. But when we dissect what the value of friendship is and what a true friend is, if it doesn't meet that criteria, why just because that banner once existed, you have to hold on to that to the detriment of yourself? That would be that again, stupid. Even if you see him wavering, then have a few gentle, patient, and heart-to-heart conversations with him. Yeah, unbelievable how like with it the PSAT is like unbelievable. If you see that they're struggling, try to have those conversations. Really try to put yourself out there. Call Yisrael Raven Zelazet. Try to be there for your brother and sister for sure. But if it doesn't help, then stay away from him so that you won't get burned, God forbid, in the conflagration of his soul. Because even after he has read all that we've written until now, even after we've warned him and put him on alert, he still needs miracles as well as a heaping dose of Hashem's mercy in order for him to remain a loyal Jew. You can daven for him. You can daven for him endlessly. But like to go down to the fire again, doesn't matter who and what, where, how. Your job is to protect yourself, to build a fence around your soul, to make sure that you're not putting yourself into situations that will compromise your relationship with Hashem. After all, we have warned and alerted him more than his neshama and forewarned and cautioned before it and was sent down to this world. And yet there are so many who've been led away and lost. May Hashem protect all of us from them. We are here. There's no question. We want to help as many people as we possibly can, but we're here to save our own soul. We're here to elevate ourselves in the best way possible. So, just as a recap, a person needs to be able to have a proactive, not a reactive, but a proactive game plan that if they are forced to go into a compromised situation, which I will say in the United States of America, it's very hard to say that that doesn't exist. Even within from communities, there is always spiritual danger lurking, and we do live in a society that is dictated by pop culture, which is very, very anti-Jewish values, very anti-Jewish values. And we have no choice, and we live in that society. If we are not proactive in building ourselves up to make sure that we are protected, then inevitably we are going to fall. And when it comes to, again, never putting ourselves in these situations, have the seichel to not do that. But when we find ourselves there, pleading to Hashem to help us save us as well. Just asking Hashem for that help could be just enough, right? When you go out into whatever it is, and you every time you check in, you say, Hashem, listen, I hope that for better days, but in the meantime, please protect me from people, protect me from scenarios, protect my soul. Be there with me in this pursuit. And then finally, in terms of the people you surround yourself with and the friends that you help out, right? He makes a great point. That person's neshama, that yid's neshama, was already warned before it came down to this earth. He was told everything. The neshama knows everything, and Hashem gave him opportunity to be able to save his own ruchnias, and he's choosing not to. There's no reason why, for some caca reason that you were once friends with them, should you also drag your soul down along with them, right? Obviously, you need to be there for them. Kiruv is important, and supporting your friend is important, and trying to have those DMCs with them to try to bring them back to the path for sure. But at a certain point, right, you got to always look out for your own neshama. You have to set yourself up for success and protect yourself in a very, very meaningful way. Yeah, just give me a sec. So that is the end of chapter 7. And we will, Mirz Hashem, when you guys get back, we'll begin chapter 8, the importance of elevating one's soul and character. We're going to delve into a little some of the some ideas in Hasidus at that point. But listen, we've all been warned by the Eish Kodesh. You fight fire with fire. It's very interesting. We talk about free will, which you mentioned before, and we're always thinking about free will of like trying to not choose the negative. But think of free will as the pursuit of being proactive to choose the positive. As in, if you're just going in the routine of life, use your free will to then go out and choose to add ruchnias into your life, to fight like being stagnant and moving forward, as opposed to just protecting yourself from the dangers. You fight fire with fire. You start to incorporate ruchnias into your life, and that's going to inherently protect you from falling into any sort of fire. Shkoyach, everyone.
Wait,
Yes.
Shkoyach,
Israel
Avi.
emoji because lion launch for
The,
Sarah.
the flag, you mean?
Yeah,
Very cool.
I want the flag.
Okay. Anyway, I wish for those of you who are leaving to Eretz Yisrael tomorrow, take it all in. Again, that is a huge cup filler that should be able to give you all the ruchnias you need until you get back. And me, Hadar, and the little people will figure out how to stay afloat. Wait for you guys. Anyway, Amit, thank you for joining us. Great to see you, and you're
We'll be
more than
back.
welcome
Thank you.
to join the chat. Um,
Avi, I have a
stay up with everyone.
question.
Yeah.
End the recording though.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Now, now everyone's gonna be wondering.
Yeah, one sec.